You know, in preparation of speaking to you today, I read that you actually were offered the role of Gaey Edwign on Knots Landing, and you turned it down. Is that true?
Well, what happened was, and I can't recall, what happened was I was doing a play, The Children's Hour, with Joanne Woodward and Shirley Knight. We were at the Berkshire Theater Festival in the Berkshires up there. And they had been very Lorimar. It was the same company. I had done an episode, as I mentioned, on the Walton, and I was back there, and what I was told was at that time there was a role to come up, and they were going to start it on the show Dallas, and then he was going to be playing. So you'll have to tell me whether this is right or not if you're knowledgeable about all this. He was going to be one of JR's brothers.
Mm-hmm.
And then they were going to spin that off into another show.
That's correct.
Is that correct?
That is correct.
I had no idea what the show was. But so somebody assumed that it was Knots Landing, I guess. But I was doing the play. I didn't even think about it, because I was already doing the play.
And to be fair, this was a couple years before Dallas really became the nationwide phenomenon that it was.
Right. Yeah. And as it turned out, obviously, with the fellow who ended up playing, they got a terrific guy to play that role, Ted Shackelford.
You bet.
And but I didn't know anything about Knots Landing. I didn't know whether, they'd even had the show. But I do remember that came my way. But they had enough patience with me that not long after that, then Flamingo Road then came my way. And, of course, out of that came
Falcon Crest.
Right.
And it all worked out for the best because it's probably safe to say that your best remembered for your role is charming, somewhat dastardly rogue Richard Channing on Falcon Crest.
I guess so. I tend to look at it as just another. It was another job in this whole. But that series had legs.
Talk about being a member of that cast and realizing that you had all hit on something very special.
Well, I knew it was sort of going to be fun because Jane was strong and fun, and Susan Sullivan, Hannah Alicia, Robert Foxworth, and the people that were there, Cesar Romero, Cliff Robertson came in.
Lana Turner came in for a bit.
Lana came in, Gina Lola Bridget came in, Leslie Caron came in, Jane Greer came in.
Kim Novak came in for a bit.
Novak came in.
Talk about the cream of the crop.
If they could get Catherine Deneuve. And I think they tried, but she had other things to do. So that was a delightful thing. And I know there were tons of people that I haven't mentioned that came through. E.G. Marshall. I started out, I think on this show, I was the character was E.G. Marshall's son. I think that's how it emanated. I'm not sure. But then it turns out in the long thing that he was actually Jane Wyman's son, too. So maybe they had a little thing. I don't know. But, yeah, I went in on the second season. They'd already been running a season. Had a great time and decided that that's when I decided to move to California because the commute back and forth to New York had gotten to be too much.
Wow. You mentioned Jane. She was so great, and I've read several interviews and accounts over the years, and my understanding is that she was a bit quiet and reserved. The classic steely matriarch, but she ruled that set. Is that fair or no?
Yeah, I don't know. She was, I suppose, a little reserved, but she had a great laugh. We loved to have fun. She was the consummate professional. She never ever missed. The only time she ever missed being there on my. When you're doing your close-ups or whatever, and the other actor is standing next to the camera or wherever doing their lines. Only one time in all those years did she ask to be excused, and she had to go to the hospital. She never missed it. She was always there on time, always early, actually. And, yeah, she didn't cotton a lot of nonsense and all of that stuff. She was there to get the job done, and we got it done.
Given that you guys ran during the Reagan years and in many ways epitomized them, was there any awkwardness there at all with Jane and that whole history of...
No, she said to me, everyone thinks that Ron and I are not friends. She said, but that's not true. She rarely talked about it, but only a couple of times do I recall, you know. Now, I don't even know what her political, I'll tell you the truth, I don't know what her political leanings were.
Wow.
But that's one thing she did say to me. That she didn't, everyone thinks that we're not, and that's not true. And yeah, I can imagine her as First Lady, though. I mean, she'd have been a pistol.
Wow.
But Nancy, there's no one that took better care of President Reagan than Nancy Reagan.
You bet. And she's just amazing. You know, she's still ticking. She's still in there.
Yeah, incredible. Just incredible.
Unbelievable.
What you talk about persistence and discipline, and, you know.
And you know, as much hell as she took from people on the left and the right, and she still just stood above it all and
from what
stayed the course.
I think from her children, she took a little.
You bet. No question about it.
Yeah.
And the magnificent Susan Sullivan, please tell me she was a dream to work with, even if it's not true.
Are you kidding? If I said anything, she'd hit me. No, she's absolutely a dream. In fact, we still see each other. I'll see her in a couple of weeks. You know, it's a Paley event thing for Falcon Crest. But she's doing this, and I haven't. I'm embarrassed to say I've never seen it. A show called Castle. And she, you know, Susan, she's wonderful. And I knew Susan from the early days in New York. We even crossed paths once at the Cleveland Playhouse. But that was many years.
You know, everybody has their own opinion on Falcon Crest's bizarre final season, and I don't want to dwell on that, but I have to tell you, I was in 8th grade that year, and as I told you, I watched that show coming up at my grandmother's knee. I can't remember not watching that show.
Right.
And I had not read that Susan was leaving the show, and, you know, this was way before the internet spoiled everything for everybody in that regard.
Right.
But that image of Maggie Channing hanging upside down in that pool trying to get that enormous diamond ring out of the pool drain, that remains one of the most arresting, one of the most visually shattering scenes I've ever seen on television, period.
Yeah. That was a sad scene. I don't like to go back to there because I didn't even want that scene to happen.
You know, watching this show that was once so great die such a slow, I don't know, kind of ignominious death. Are you the kind of actor that leaves it at the stage door, or was it difficult for you to watch that show just fade away?
Well, what happened was, you know, they had so many political upheavals within the producing ranks that the show suffered. So that by the end, the last 2 seasons or whatever, there was a whole new regime.
Mm-hmm.
And it lost its, I don't know. You know, it's difficult, you know, and it's been a lot of years ago now. So, but I do remember there was some topsy-turvy, some infighting, some, you know, changeover.
Absolutely.
And whenever those kinds of things happen, now the show may have gone its own way anyway, and perhaps that's why certain changes they felt. I don't know. Usually the actors are the last to know. By the time it filters down to the floor, you know.
You know, it's one of the tenets of American television, to my eye anyway, that a long run is the only thing deemed worth striving for. And, you know, consequently, shows that are great tend to wear out their welcome, and you know, it can be sad to witness.
Oh, yeah, sure. I mean, you know, you take the classic shows, whether it's Cheers or MASH, you know, Lucy, I mean, but I can still turn in some of those things and just, you know, sit there and watch them.
Absolutely. You know, and now with the advent of cable television and you know, TV on DVD, entire new generations of fans are discovering and falling in love with Falcon Crest. I mean, you know, SoapNet ran them all a few years ago, and the first season was released on DVD in the spring, and I believe season 2 is out later this month. That must be exciting to you, you know, this idea that just like so many people found Dark Shadows after the fact, people are going to be finding this series all over.
They'll be finding it again, yeah. I'll have to get that season 2. I haven't. I guess at some point I'll find out, and somebody will send me some information, and I'll have to get it.
Absolutely. You know, you mentioned all your stage work. I know you've achieved a great deal of your fame and notoriety